What is Mercury retrograde? Have that. Hi, I'm Colette Baron-Reed. What is Mercury retrograde? That's the number one question that comes into my website. So I'm here today with one of my most favorite astrologers on the planet. No kidding. His name is Dr. Michael Lennox. And he is going to chat with me today so that you can really get the skinny and the scoop on what really is Mercury retrograde. Hey, Michael, welcome.
Hey, how you doing, honey?
I'm doing good. I'm so excited you said yes to this. So I want to hear from you exactly what the heck is Mercury retrograde? Because I have my opinions on this too. You tell me.
I have my opinions on this, and I think your opinion and my opinion about Mercury retrograde are probably in the same
Yeah.
camp. First of all, let's understand this about retrograde motion in general. It's a principle in physics. It's not about Mercury, and it's not about astrology. It's about two bodies in space moving at different speeds. And when one overtakes the other, there's an appearance from the relative position of one to the other that the other body looks like it's moving backwards. This has been seen by lots of people on the planet in a passenger seat in a car. You can look out at the hubcap of the car that's driving past you, and there's a moment where it almost looks like the wheel is spinning backwards, and then it goes on. I've seen this. I know people have seen this.
I've seen
Maybe
it.
if you haven't, you can do that. Don't do it while you're driving. Be a passenger. It's a phenomenon of relativity because the bodies are both moving through space at different speeds. That's as good as it can get for that, but we got to start there, that it's a phenomena of movement. And because all of the planets are moving, every single planet appears to go backwards for a period of time from our perspective. It's just that Mercury is the one where it's completely regular and constant. Every 88 days for 22 days, Mercury appears to move backwards. So we start with that so that it's not some mystical, magical thing that only Mercury does to, give us a hassle or two. It's a phenomenon of movement. So because it's just an astronomical event, we have to interpret something into it. The interpretation archetypally that I like to use, because I'm all about consciousness, is that the backward moving planet is more aligned with our unconscious than our conscious mind. So when any planet is retrograde, it's as if it's visiting territory that's below the surface of our consciousness. And that's the number one place where value comes from them, is anything that dips into the unconscious means we can visit material that we might not otherwise be able to see because the unconscious is hidden to us. This may be counterintuitive to what you think my answer is going to be, but to help understand Mercury retrograde, I'm going to describe some things about REM sleep.
Ooh, cool.
Okay, so you move through the world in a day, you collect all of this data in all of your senses, and you go to bed at night with a brain filled with neural pathways that have been made that day. Everything you did, everything you touched, everything you experienced is recorded in your brain with these pathways of neurological connections. You don't have enough brain power to sustain all of that. So when we go into REM sleep, one of the artifacts of the brain function of REM sleep is every thought you have during the day is reviewed. And the brain says that becomes a memory. That's detritus. We don't need to remember that. So all the bullshit just falls away into the abyss of the deep unconsciousness. And the brain is sort of masterful at formulating the memory you need to be smarter on a Wednesday than you were on a Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Now, if I switch back to astrology, Mercury is our thinking, narrating mechanism. In fact, it's helpful to make this distinction. Mercury and the sun are constantly together. They don't go any further than like 28 degrees on either side. because he's so close to the sun, zipping around. So from our perspective, Mercury and the sun are always connected. But they represent different things. The sun is our conscious awareness and Mercury is our thinking, but they're not the same thing. Our thinking is just the mechanism, the narrator. I know who I am, I know where I am, I know when I am, and I have lots of thoughts and opinions. And conscious awareness is I am Michael.
Right.
So back to the REM sleep model. Mercury moves about 2 months or so in what I call the free and clear period, where he's not making any retrograde, not going anywhere near a backward motion experience. That's about 2 months long. And then when those 2 months of free and clear are over, he moves into the territory energetically where he's going to go retrograde and move backwards for that 22 days. So in all of those months of being out in the world in direct motion is just like us during a Tuesday, thinking thoughts and having experiences and collecting that data. You can think of Mercury as having collected weeks and months of thoughts, negotiations, communications, and everything from, like I like to say, from the neck up. And it's as if he says at a certain moment, stop, there's too much. I've got to download stuff and let go of what's extraneous. I've got to look at how I'm thinking and negotiating and being in my mind and make solid and permanent ideas and new things I'm learning about how to communicate better. Mercury in his backward motion then is dipped a little bit into the unconscious because that's how we interpret the backward motion. Halfway in between the beginning and the end of that 22-day retrograde period, Mercury and the sun come together. It's exactly at the midpoint of the retrograde. And now our thinking mechanism and our conscious awareness meet up. And it's at that moment when who we are gets downloaded with all of the stuff that we're learning, getting rid of, making more permanent, gets sort of installed into our conscious awareness to have the sun of our conscious awareness, and then Mercury dipped into the unconscious mind, sort of delivering those wisdom pieces in the middle of the retrograde. And then we get another sort of 10, 11 days to sort of wrap it up. And then Mercury goes direct. We're out of that unconscious process. And as a result of allowing ourselves to go through that, we are smarter, more aware of our communication. We've integrated stuff that we learned over the last couple of months. And without that regular every 88 days for 22 days visit to the unconscious to process how we think and what we think, we wouldn't grow intellectually or mentally or communicatively.
So it's almost like you're describing that Mercury retrograde is like REM sleep, where, right? Where it's a sorting time. It's a sorting time to look at. So I've always experienced it as I used to be challenged by it, but I don't know, maybe it's because I got older and I'm a little bit more mature, but I see it as a time to reorganize, rethink things, revisit, and then rebirth, recalibrate, and then, dump whatever doesn't work. Because I will see that in difficulties that will come up, right, during Mercury retrograde. And I don't know if that's, because there's a lot of ideas about Mercury retrograde being a difficult time every time. Like, oh my God, don't go anywhere. Don't sign contracts. Why are those
anything? Don't. Yeah.
Why are those myths? Tell me what is at the core of the myths that everybody, because I want to myth bust with you a little bit.
First of all, one reason why it's mythologically sort of ubiquitously thought of as bad is because it's sexy to talk about it and write about it, and social media then immediately likes to spread messages like that. And so it's just easy to have an idea that everybody agrees upon. And so it emphasizes the difficulty. Now, they are difficult. Think about Mercury as the navigating mechanism. Like Mercury is the one that says, stop. Look both ways before you cross the street. Hey, put on a sweater. It got cold outside. So that navigating, narrating mechanism is turned within for 3 weeks. Of course, we're going to bump into the furniture. We can't see where we're going. We're in process. So we're like, oh, I didn't see that. Oh, I didn't see that. So they are bumpy. And yeah, there are things that aren't conducive or well done in a Mercury retrograde, but not ubiquitously don't do anything. Like I'm always telling clients, just respond to the horizon of your life.
Right.
If it comes over the horizon and needs your attention, do it anyway, even if Mercury's retrograde.
Do you think sometimes that people say, because I've heard it so often and so many websites I've read it, that it's not a good time to sign contracts? Now, is it because we're processing during that time and we might change our minds?
That's a very anthropomorphized kind of perspective, like it's magic, like you're going to change your mind. But think about it this way. A contract is an astrological initiation point. Like if you want to read somebody's chart, you have to see when did they start their life.
Right.
So the life of a person starts with their birth date, time, and location, but the start of a business or the start of a joint venture is the contract signing date. So if you're signing a contract when the thinking mechanism is in the unconscious, the thought is that that might not be conducive for what the contract is describing might take place.
Oh, that's interesting. So I've never heard it like that before.
I have married several couples who wanted to get married while Mercury's retrograde. And the language I would have for that is, well, first of all, the unconscious person who's not thinking about astrology. One of this was the daughter and son, or the son and daughter-in-law of a woman who was a client, and she knew Mercury was retrograde when they wanted to get married and said, you can't get married then. They're like, we're getting married. And I married them. My guess is that every time Mercury goes retrograde, they have an intimacy that returns.
Oh, interesting.
For a long time. You know about that rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I have a funny story about Mercury retrograde. My doctoral dissertation is published by a German academic publishing house where it's automated. Once they decide they're going to publish you, they say, we're accepting your publication. They send you a link. It's a self-download or self-upload. And they say, make sure you eyeball this like crazy because no one's going to see this before they print it. It's automatic from what you send to what you print. And I'm like, uh-oh, Mercury was retrograde.
Oh.
And I had this 2-week window to trigger sending them the document, and Mercury was retrograde the whole time. And it's like, I can't possibly tell them, can we wait a month?
Right.
So I thought, I'm just going to dot every I, cross every T 6 times to Sunday. And I did that. And 2 months later, when my first copies came, the last page was first and the first page was last, because my computer sent it to Germany as if it was sending a document to a printer. And my printer default mechanism was last page first.
Oh.
I write books, right? And you don't want to print out 100 pages, first page first. You want it to print last page first. So when you get it, it's in the right order. But that's how they printed it.
Oh my God.
So should I not have? First of all, I have a great story to tell, worth the story, and the $250 I had to pay to have them reset it. So what do you want to do with that? Do you want to say, oh my God, that happened, therefore no one should ever do anything in a Mercury retrograde? Well, that's nonsense.
But let me ask you this, though. There's so many stories of computers breaking down and things that relate to communications. So give me a little bit of a download on that.
Well, Mercury is the communication planet, and the planets, they don't impact us. Mercury retrograde isn't doing it to us. The planets reflect us, and they reflect us perfectly. And this is, of course, what I get to see for being an astrologer for 25 years, is I've seen this, thousands of times in ways that make it unequivocally true or real for me that the planetary movement really do reflect our consciousness. So if the thinking mechanism is backwards, then our thinking mechanism is backwards. Right. So yes, I may say Mercury retrogrades are great. They're purposeful, they're powerful, they're important, they're valuable. And yeah, your computer might break. I can't, I mean, I sometimes will laugh depending on how it's hitting my chart, where there's like breakdowns and all kinds of stuff. But that doesn't make me dislike Mercury retrogrades. It just makes me aware that one of the things I might be experiencing during this time is more delays, more latenesses, more breakdowns. I'm not sure that clients are late and delayed more in retrogrades, Mercury retrogrades, but it feels like they are.
Interesting.
This might be a thing that I'm more attuned to the feeling of discomfort when someone is delayed or late or something when Mercury is retrograde. So yes, these things are bumpy, clunky, but I wouldn't recommend anybody moving through life from the fearful, superstitious place first.
Right.
Most contracts that people might ask me about, I would recommend, but maybe not all. For example, the first question I would have with somebody who was creating some sort of a business, I would be like, well, is this seasonal? Do you move in and out of rhythms where you could actually use the Mercury retrograde to your benefit?
Mm-hmm.
There's all sorts of ways to think about it. But if I could do one thing, it would be to back everybody off the cliff of Mercury retrogrades are bad. Because not only are they not bad, Colette, they're wildly important.
And I use them. I've got to the point where I know, oh, there's a retrograde coming, so I'm going to have to revisit, look at things again and see if I want to change anything and what do I really need to throw out. Almost like a little bit like a full moon sometimes, of like I need to release this at that but it's a 22-day period. Well, this is really helpful. So I think what you helped me with is to kind of dispel some of those myths, because everywhere says, oh, things might be delayed. Don't sign contracts. It could be bad. Oh, it's Mercury retrograde. Oh, can't do that. And I do think that there's a lot of superstitious nonsense around.
There's also a way to make the 22-day period of the backward motion much more beneficial and favorable to you, which is the 3 acts of every retrograde.
Ooh.
It's not just the 21, 22-day backward motion that is what Mercury retrogrades are. It starts with what's called the retrograde shadow. So for a couple of weeks before Mercury turns around, he's going to cover the territory that he's going to go backwards over and revisit a second time. So that shadow period, that's essentially 2 weeks before the retrograde, now that's where you data mine.
Aha.
That's where you pay attention. That's where you're like, ooh, that conversation didn't go well. What's the communication gaffe that I might be revisiting when Mercury goes retrograde? Ooh, this negotiation is challenging. Bet you it's going to come up again in the retrograde. So when we pay attention to those weeks before, then the 2.5-week dive or 3-week dive of the Mercury retrograde is much more
Informed.
productive.
Informed and productive.
The third act of what's called the direct shadow, when he's now covering the same territory, but for the third time. So stuff that came up in the first act might be revisited in an earnest sort of way in the retrograde itself, and may take a third section to wrap up. And when you know that, then you will stop judging the delays that come or the twists in the road and just sort of trust, all right, we're in a process. I'm going to be revisiting this again. Let's allow that to occur, to have the unfolding unfold.
And would you say, too, that each retrograde is also colored or informed by the sign that it's in? Right? Because it's going to have a different temperature. Each, like a Mercury retrograde in Aquarius won't be the same as a Mercury retrograde in Aries.
Correct. And that's the beauty of knowing the archetypes, because the sensation, the element, even just paying attention to the element, air, water, fire, or earth, where an air sign retrograde is much more about intellect and how we think. Water sign Mercury retrogrades are about the emotionality of our communication. Earth sign retrogrades are much more about using the voice and the mind to create form, and fire signs are about change.
Awesome. This is so helpful. Thank you so much, Michael. I'm excited also to invite you back in a series of Mercury retrograde. So everybody, I hope you enjoyed listening to Dr. Michael Lennox. He is so awesome. And if anybody wants to get a hold of you, how would that do? How would that do? How would they do that?
MichaelLennox.com is the website, and that's certainly the place to start. And if you like what you see there, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and you can find those links at Michael Lennox.
And you'll see lots of him around me. All right, everybody. Love you all. Thank you, Michael. What is Mercury retrograde? Have that.